Comic book faces and their artists. Interesting stuff. But let's start at the basics first. Back in elementary school, they taught me to draw faces like this: an oval, half, half, and half again. And that's for the eyes, nose, and mouth. Ta-da! But how accurate is this actually? Not that accurate. Eyes are right, but the mouth is higher and the nose as well. So how about Jim Lee, the master? Let's check that. Let's get some skin on this skull. Wow, that is actually perfect. Half for the eyes, and then kind of like divided into three, with the nose and the mouth a bit closer to each other. These artists here have all very different art styles, and let's see if we can find what the difference is. So Paul Smith has pretty accurate dimensions. Jim Lee has a ton of lines to drop the shadows. Mike Mignola uses less lines and they have very sharp angles. John Romita Jr. has the same straight lines in the face. And then Whilce, Portacio, and Jim Lee are very similar. But if I had to spot a difference in the face, Whilce has a higher cheekbones and thinner eyes. And one major point is his exaggeration. Here in this shoulder, super wide shoulders, not realistic at all. And look at this Wolverine. So yeah, that leads us to the exaggerating style, of which Larry Stroman is a king. Just look at this super square face, all round. And is that John Turturro here? Of course, speaking of cartoony styles, Todd McFarlane takes it even further. Look at these shapes of the faces. Even in a classic Pretty Woman, the eyes are very big and wide apart. So yeah, what are the variables in styles? I'd say there's two. First, the proportions, so the degree of cartooning, how realistic or cartoony something is. And then what to actually turn into a line. Because here, if you take this Andrew Loomis underlying structure and Cary Grant, our faces are just blobs of meat that we have to translate into lines. So like a nose could be like this, or just the bottom part, and then dropping the shadows with either a lot of thin lines or one line. Because even on this example, this cheek is obviously a line, mouth too. But yeah, fades. Fades you have to translate into lines, or which part are you even going to ignore? The bottom of the eye often gets left out by artists. Okay, let's take Steve McQueen and draw him in 4 different styles. Let's start with a fun one, Todd McFarlane. Get some good samples. And yeah, Steve McQueen kind of has a triangular face, which I'm sure Todd McFarlane would exaggerate. Maybe contrasted with some thick ears and huge eyes, of course. Lots of little thin lines. And that typical crackly lightning strike hair. Okay, next, the opposite. Paul Smith's clean, realistic style. Kind of as few lines as possible. But Steve McQueen is not young anymore in Bullet, so still adding some shading on the cheekbones. Okay, John Romita Jr. Give him that big jaw. And those typical diagonal lines. And Whilce Portacio also does kind of elongated faces. Especially with him, that glare, kind of an oval upward look is very specific. Also very thin lines. Okay, that kind of looks like four very different styles. Paul Smith with the realism, JRGR where everything's square, even the lips, eyes, and of course the face. McFarlane with his typical mouth, exaggerated shapes, and then Portacio with the hatching and the glare. Another thing I noticed while reading Wizard, the guide to comics back in the day, was that all these artists kind of like draw faces based on their own face. Like Bill Sienkiewicz here, obviously, a triangular shape and that smile. Jack Kirby with the bags under his eyes, square face. JRJR, even more square. Barry Windsor Smith with that melancholy look, kind of. And then, of course, the long faces. Rob Liefeld with the mop haircut. And check out this Frank Miller. Cheekbones, check. Straight nose, check. Beard and the evil stare. Okay, to summarize, I guess you can have these extremities, realistic and exaggerated, and minimal and detailed, and then everybody kind of falls somewhere on that. Kind of simplistic, but I do think these are the two variables, because obviously JR and Mike Mignola are of the same kind, and Liefeld, Portacio as well. Yeah, let me know what you think. I'm so curious to hear what you think about styles. Drop a like if you like this one, and see you next time for the bodies.